And welcome in to PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox at PressBoxOnline.com. And the man you're seeing there is our very special guest tonight, and that is Dave Righetti, an old friend of Ross Grimsley's. And Ross, we normally start these immediately asking questions of the guests, and we are going to want to talk to Dave Righetti. But I've got to ask you a question. We found out we lost a beloved figure in the world of baseball today, Richie Allen. I quickly, in my research, figured out that Dave Righetti probably never pitched to Dick Allen, but you did pitch to him back in the 60s. Your thoughts on the loss of Dick Allen?
Now, I didn't know about it until Scotty McGregor called me today and said that he had passed, and I was telling him a story. He's the only hitter in my career that I was absolutely petrified to pitch to. And I would throw two fastballs as far off the plate as I could throw them, and throwing nothing but change up and curveballs, and hope he didn't hit it at me. So that was, I mean, he was scary. He wore that big wool sweatshirt no matter how hot it was. And he wore it, and I found this out later on. He wore it because his arms were so big and he didn't want to scare everybody. So he did anyway. But just please don't hit the ball at me. That's all. I felt bad for the third baseman, whoever that might have been. But yeah, sad time. And this guy has, I think, the credentials to be in the Hall of Fame, and very possibly that just may put him in there.
I think there's been a push now. Mike Schmidt wrote a letter to the Hall of Fame committee, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Veterans Committee, or what the new name is for that, puts him into the Hall of Fame. You know, I'll tell you a funny story about him, Dave. Somebody once mentioned to me, it was Rick Dempsey, was telling me that the strongest handshake he ever had was Richie Allen, until he was introduced to Mike Piazza, who he said had an unbelievable handshake.
Yeah.
There's a little trivia for you. Handshake trivia.
Yeah, Goose Gossage used to tell stories. He was they played together with the White Sox.
Right.
And he was in
the White Sox. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was funny because Dick had a lot of different labels and things like that, but as a ball player and everything, Goose said he was the best player he ever played with.
Yeah.
And
he was one of the most dangerous hitters.
Yeah, him and Winfield. Because Winfield,
those of us,
he'd throw a bat at you too, so you might get the bat too.
Well, and a lot of us know of Richie, are friends with his brother Hank Allen, who was a scout for many, many years with the Astros organization. And Hank was a racehorse trainer too, and Dick Allen owned some of the horses at one time. Right. It's going back many years. But anyway, let's move on to talking about Dave Righetti, a long and storied career in the world of baseball. You were with the Yankees as a player from 79 to 90. You pitched a couple of years for the Giants. You pitched one season where you were in Oakland and Toronto. Then you finished up with those White Sox, and then you were pitching coach for the Giants for 18 years. One of the things in looking all this up, Dave, is that the number of big-time managers that you rubbed elbows with, played with, pitched against, all that. Billy Martin, Dick Hauser, Gene Michael, Bob Lemon, Clyde King, Yogi Berra, Lou Piniella, Dallas Green, Bucky Dent, and even Stump Merrill. And then you end up playing for Dusty Baker for a little bit. Then you end up Dusty's pitching coach. And then you wind up with the guy that we know is going to go into the Hall of Fame, Bruce Bochy. A little bit, who's the most, memorable of that old group?
Well, it depends. Billy Martin for a number of reasons. I had him 4 times.
Yeah.
I had Lou Piniella, and they were very much alike. I think Lou took a lot from Billy. Dallas Green, had a way about him. I really liked Dallas. He'd give you the tough guy. I'm gonna break in. But I liked that. I enjoyed Dallas a lot, and Tony La Russa.
Yeah.
Was probably, I had Tony for a little bit, but as a coach, I had Felipe Alou, of course, Bochy and Bake, and all those guys won over 1,000 games. You know what? I was just lucky, but you're right. I was a lot of different managers. Cito Gaston was on that list too, and some other folks. But, you know, not only that was being able to play with a lot of different Hall of Famers. And because we're talking to yourself, Stan, and my buddy Ross, I was so proud to come up in the 70s and play in the American League East, where my guess is in the last 20 years, more Hall of Famers have come out of just that division than it's not even close. Every team, Boston, Detroit, Baltimore, everybody had 2 or 3 Hall of Famers, Yankees, of course. And to play against that competition, the McGregors and Flanagans and Palmers, and, you know, you go over to Detroit with Morris, and, you know, it goes on and on and on. And that was a privilege. Sparky Anderson, Earl Weaver, Billy Martin, Whitman, and the managers, right? You know, and you got Ernie Harwell up there, and you got, you know, Rex Barney, maybe yell and give that fan a contract. Real quick, because I'll forget, and Ross will get a kick out of this. Back in, gosh, it had to be 85 or 6. The Orioles were struggling.
Yeah.
And we came into town, and normally it was packed. But for whatever reason, there wasn't a lot of people in that right field bullpen. So we had a funny idea, was to build this, we called it a water balloon launcher. Basically, it was a high-powered. Yeah. So, and we did it so we could hit Rex in the booth up there, or at least take a shot at him. So we set that thing up behind the bullpen in Baltimore with that little small, we could see out that little hole, right? And we set it right over the top of the fence. We had Jay Howe and Shane Raleigh pulling back on that thing, and your guy's friend, Tim Stoddard, was in the middle of it. And when somebody just said, aim and pull, and we let those things go. I think one got up to the level, but we didn't quite we didn't get wrecked. But they know they were coming, but you could do that, then there wasn't anybody in the stands.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't often the case. That wasn't often the case when the Yankees came to anything.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, it used to be crowded. That was fun. I got there in the late 70s. Of course, the battles between the Orioles and the Yankees were really great. In fact, those were the two teams. I mean, Toronto came up and was really good too.
Yeah.
But for about 6-7 years, it was Oriole Yankee until Detroit got going, and Boston mid-80s.
Yeah.
But that was it. You had to beat Baltimore. You had to outpitch them and play good defense.
Yeah.
Let me just get back to the managers one brief second, because you didn't really end up talking about him at all. Okay. The late Dick Hauser. Was he somebody that you knew was going to be at the top of his game as a manager? Was he that good? You know, when I got to the Yankees, Dick had been been in the big leagues, and then he went in the minors. I think Syracuse. He might have been out in Tacoma. Him and Bobby Cox were the two guys coming up through the organization. Yeah, that were going to be the next guys, right behind Billy and Buck Lemon. At that time, Buck Showalter was well behind, but so in that case, with Dick, I really liked him a lot. Two big things happened. When I got there in 1980, Dick took over. He came up to me the first day. Billy Martin had got fired that winter. The day before this season ended, he called me and Ron Guidry into the office, and he said, "Dave, I want you to do whatever Guidry does." And I said, "He hunts and fishes down in Louisiana." I said, "I'm not going down there." He goes, "Well, do whatever he does to stay in shape. You're going to be one of my 5 starters, one of my 5 starters." I think Figueroa, Tiant, myself, I'm not sure, Tommy John probably. Yeah. And I said, "Wow." So I went home and worked hard. I got the spring. The first day I met Hauser, he came up and told me, he goes, "I don't want to waste time, but I'm going to let you know, you're not going to make this team." I went, "What?"
Thanks.
So that didn't go real good, right? But then 1986, Dick won the World's Championship in 85, and he was the all-star manager in 86 in Houston. The first thing he did was call me in the office and congratulate me. Back then, you didn't go to the manager's office for anything. Nobody did. And so that was pretty nice of him. And he remembered that conversation. He goes, You know, I don't know how smart I was back. I said, don't worry. But they won 100 games that year, and he got fired in 1 year.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
How about that?
Crazy.
Yeah. They
Ross,
wanted to
go
fire
ahead.
Dean
Hey.
Michaels, the third base coach.
Hey, Rex, I know baseball was in your family growing up.
Yeah.
And, your dad played as a minor league infielder. Your brother played. He was a minor league infielder. He was even growing up. He was an infielder, shortstop. I think you were an outfielder.
Yeah.
Tell us how you became a pitcher. I mean, I don't think you pitched very much until high school. But
No.
how did that transpire? Tell us a little bit about that.
I didn't grow. And the field is, if you guys remember, you're playing what we used to call Little League baseball. Then
Right.
you're 12, and the next field you played on was a major league size field, which was senior leagues, they called it. And hell, I couldn't hit the grass out there with a line drive. I mean, whoa, and first base looked like an eternity. So I spent about 4 years trying to catch up. And to be honest, I didn't grow, Ross. I had a good arm. I started playing basketball and did some other things. And I think when I was 16 or 17, I grew, and my friends said, what are you going to do? You're going to play baseball your senior year? And I said, well, I'll go out for the team again. Well, that summer I actually played in a little American Legion ball, and I pitched, and they said, well, maybe you should pitch. So I went back to my senior season. I gave it a shot. And for whatever reason, I grew a little bit. I got to about 6'1" and about 150 pounds. And I just started throwing a little harder. And I ended up pitching the whole year, and didn't think anything of it. Went to our local junior college, which was the same junior college as Scotty Erickson and Dave Steve was San Jose City College. And I pitched there, and in about 4 months, they drafted me. And so even though I was in a baseball family, I had no idea that I was going to be a pitcher or a player, but it was a lack of size and strength. And back then, you know, we were allergic to weight rooms. We never went in a weight room.
Right.
Right. So
Really,
that's kind of how it is, real quickly.
yeah. Well, you were number one pick for Texas, 10th, 10th all around. And what's crazy is you started from 77 to 83. I think you're in 185 games. You made 173 starts.
Yeah.
You had 76 starts in the major leagues, 79, 82, 83. Then all of a sudden, you were 33 and 23. You had a 3-something earned run average. And all of a sudden, they want to put you in the bullpen. Tell us how that happened.
Well, my dad, my mom, and I were sitting in a bowling alley in San Jose having breakfast, and a neighbor came running into the bowling alley and came into the breakfast shop there, and they said, hey, your brother's trying to get a hold of you, Mr. You know, my mother and father are sitting there. You have a phone call from the Yankees. You know, there's no phones back then other than the one in your house. So I had to go home, and my dad knew right away. He goes, because Goose Gossage that night, the night before, just left for free agency to go to San Diego. And my dad said it as I was running back to the house, which was a couple miles away. He said, they're going to ask you to close. I said, no, I'm not. Why would they do that? You know. Sure enough, that was first year Yogi Berra took over again. Billy got fired that winter because Billy would have never done that. He would have kept me as a starter. And because Yogi asked me, he said, hey, Dave, what are you doing? You know, and I said, hey, Yogi, what's up? And I could tell right away. Sammy Ellis was on the call, and so was Jeff Torborg. And they did a conference call to ask me. And I said, well,
Sammy was the pitch.
Yes, sir.
Sammy was the pitching coach then? Yeah.
Yeah, Sammy was. Art Fowler was let go too, probably, because he went along with Billy. And they asked me to do it. And Yogi goes, I'll take care of you. I think I threw 100 ball games that year, 100 or something. I threw 100 innings. I know that.
Right.
But I said, damn, this stuff's hard. You know, because I mean, I had to pitch every day.
Did you want to do that? Did you want to do that? Did you want to be a reliever, or were you a little reluctant to do it?
On being a Yankee and being on that team, that good team that we had, I thought we had, we ended up, the Tigers took off that year in '84. I took it as not only as a compliment to take Goose's, not take his job, but give me a shot at it. And, but I was disappointed. Yeah, Ross. But I did have a contract already.
Yeah.
Because as you know, especially then, starters got paid a hell of a lot more than relievers.
Right.
And you don't know how long your arm's going to last. And, but as from a teammate standpoint, I kind of took a lot of pride in it and tried to do my best shot. But they argued over it every year. Every new manager came in, which was every year. Everybody, the first question they got asked, Righetti going to start or relief? So it never went away for 6, 7, 8 years.
Well, you had 240 something saves with the Yankees, and fifth most of any left-hander in baseball.
Yeah,
I think you're second to Mariano Rivera in saves for the Yankees. So obviously that worked out pretty well for you.
Yeah, it did. You know, I'm proud of it. I'm proud to be able to hold up and be there for him. Never missed a game. So that's all. You know, that's all you can ask when you sign a contract, is to be there for your team.
There really haven't been a lot. I mean, I guess at its core, every relief pitcher that ends up closing games was a one-time starter that changed to a reliever. But the only ones that really come to a mind are Smoltz, Eckersley, and you, that were that high profile a guy. Was it an easy transition to make mentally and physically? What was harder?
Mentally, excuse me, mentally, only because of the weight of the game. Every game was on you. And Mr. Steinbrenner let me know that.
Oh, Lord. Oh.
So, you know, my last name is, I mean, everybody calls me Rags. Nobody calls me or Spaghetti or anything. But so on the back of the New York Post, they had a thing where it rhymed with gags. So it was real easy to say, hey, Rags, gags tonight.
Oh.
So that, you know, you had to deal with that more often. But physically, I was young enough and my arm was, at that time, I thought I was invincible because I didn't feel any pain. But, you know, Ross, you can vouch to this. And I know you went through just about everything and coached everybody too. As a starter, my shoulder would ache more, but as a reliever, my elbow did.
Really?
Because you didn't have a chance to get it going as quick. But as a starter, you tended to wear down in your shoulder and you drag your arm a hair. But I think I tried to throw too hard as a reliever and too hard, too quick, to be honest. And I tended, you know, your elbow tends to take the brunt of that.
I want to transition and talk about your time with the Giants as a pitching coach, but I do want to talk about one more thing about the managers. How that was a darn good team from 79 to the mid 80s. You know, the Yankees were a great team. But how did you guys manage to keeping it serious with the constant firing of Billy Martin and bringing him back? Did it distract the players at all?
Yes, it distracted the guys that mattered most. If you're going to win, you got to have everybody from the bench, everybody, because we knew when we teed it up every year, it was probably going to take 95 plus to win.
Yeah, Earl made sure of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was, I think one year there was 4 teams with 90 wins. If you look back in the mid 90s, 80s, and so anyway, I think what kept us that way was Guidry, Willie Randolph, myself, Mattingly, the core group of guys that have been there. Winfield, unfortunately, he would go toe to toe with George. He took a lot of brunt off of us.
Yeah,
because him and George would go at it over a number of different things. Don Baylor was there, Mike Easler. I mean, go on and on. But the guys, if you start thinking about it, all those guys kept it going pretty good. And so we were able to do that. I had a good group of guys down in the bullpen. Tim Stoddard was one of my best friends and my bodyguard. So I had that going for me. Big
Really?
Chewy. Yeah. But you know what? I think that was the only reason. But honestly, it did get to us at times. We had Phil and Joe Negro, guys that have been around. You know, Rick Roden, just a lot of good people. And well, we just didn't make it to the end. To be honest, we weren't good enough.
You mentioned Don Mattingly. Do you have any doubts at all that minus the back problems that he had, that
Oh,
was
God.
a Hall of Fame player.
You know what he did? Yes, sir. He changed the league. Our division, all the great pitchers in our division, he owned them. And he hit everybody. He was hitting McGregor and Flanagan, the lefties. He was hitting Morris. He was hitting Dave Steve. He was turning games around. And he was the force. In fact, Ricky Henderson is the best player you've ever played with.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. If he gets that second MVP in '86, they gave it to Clemens as a pitcher. And Donnie's stats were off the charts. He had 8 home runs in a row. He hit 6 grand slams that year. But Roger deserved it. But I think the second MVP may have done it because Dale Murphy's not in either. So, but Donnie was over and above the best player. And I was at the All-Star game in Houston in '86. It's the first time I ever heard this. Kirby Puckett's the one that named Donnie Baseball. It wasn't a Yankee fan. It wasn't a Yankee writer. It was Kirby Puckett that said it in the dugout in Houston. And I never forget it. I said, wow, look at the way this guy thinks about him too, And he said it because he wasn't starting. Wally Joyner got the start at the All-Star game. And he was the reigning MVP. So anyway, yes, I do. Yeah, 9 Gold Gloves. What a hitter.
And one more question about your time with the Yankees. Then talk about the no-hitter. Was your no-hitter on 4th of July?
Yes, sir. Yeah. It was George's birthday.
That must have been
George's
birthday.
All right.
It was our owner too. Peter Angelos was born on the 4th.
Oh, you're kidding. No kidding.
No. Both of them.
So yeah, it was too long of a story. There's a bunch of different things that fell into it. What's really cool about it, it lasts to this day because of the day. It was the anniversary of Lou Gehrig's speech, of course. And quick story, and everybody will have fun with. The night before, Don Baylor or the day before, it was a day game. Is one thing you never do, especially back then, was Steinbrenner wasn't in the stadium. I never forget this. And so I went out onto the steps to get some air. It was so hot. We were playing Boston. And so I didn't sit on the top step, but I was out there on a step. And Baylor come over to me in the way Donnie could, real quietly, hey, you might want to get off the step. You got to pitch tomorrow. And I didn't even, no answers, get up, move. And because, how I felt about Groove, he was a great man and a tough guy. But
yeah. So
anyway, later that night, there was a concert at the Meadowlands in Jersey. And it was Willie Nelson and the Outlaws, Chris Christopherson and Waylon Jennings and Merle Haggard. So the whole team went to the thing, and I got a pitch the next day. And they went to the concert, and it was hot. And so I stayed only for a little bit. I was with Greg Nettles. And as we're walking out, we go through the back of the stage area to say goodbye. And I made a huge mistake. I walked in with Nettles, who had 15 years in the big leagues, and I got about 3. I walk in, they knock on the trailer door, and we walk in, and there's, swear to God, Willie and Merle Haggard and those guys playing Poncho and Lefty, practicing it, because they'd never sing it live before. And so it was kind of cool. I was sitting there, and Goose was in there, so was Billy. And first they said, stop, hold it, sorry, Willie. And they yelled at get your little, they jumped me pretty good. Marky Lyle was in there. I said, I just saying goodbye. I'll see you. Yeah. Well, you better pitch good tomorrow. So anyway, I drove home. The next day I was fortunate enough to pull off that game. And as soon as Billy got to me, I said, well, how was that? Was that good enough for you? But anyway, that was a little fun fact or whatever you want to call it, part of that game. But yeah, real fortunate, the Red Sox and July 4th.
You had pitched against them 2 starts before that, and they had beaten you, correct?
Did they? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
I just thought that was amazing to come back and no hit them.
You know what? And they were hot, and they were beating our brains out. And I just wanted to get off to a good start and keep us in the game because I figured it was 100 degrees, 90 whatever, and hot day game. And Ross, I just wanted to give us a chance. And if I got tired, make it the Goose and let Goose pitch the last 2 innings. because back then that's what he did most of the time. So I was honestly just trying to do that. And I got a bunch of quick outs in around the 7th and 8th inning. So I was able to finish through 140 pitches, or whatever.
Which is nothing back then.
Pretty normal. Go tape your fingernail up.
Yeah, really. Rags, your last year was 1995. And a few years after that, you've signed on with the Giants. And I know you were my first year was 99. And your first year was 99, I believe, too. What got you involved with the Giants in the coaching area?
A fluke. Gary Hughes, a longtime GM and scout, as a lot of us know, unfortunately, he passed away this year during the summer during COVID season. Season. Now it's out of season.
Gary worked in Baltimore for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, everywhere. And he was working to the day he passed. And he called me up and he said, "You want to go to the ballpark?" And I said, "What? I'm not going to Candlestick. It's freezing ass." Excuse me. And, whatever I was doing, it was better than doing that. And I said, "You want me?" So I started thinking, I said, "You're going to go up in the press room." And then I said, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So he goes, "No, we're going to get something to eat. We'll go sit in the stands." And he goes say hi to Dusty, and Danny Darwin was down there. He was one of my first roommates with the Texas Rangers back in the 70s. And, I knew Barry and a few of the other players that were still there. Anyway, I went down to the field, said hello with Gary. And the next day, my phone rang. Brian Sabian, our GM, and Dusty had called, and they lied to me. They called me and they said, they didn't lie, they were fibbing, but they said, "Well, if Robbie Thompson says he'll go if you say yeah, and vice versa." So neither one of us knew that, but we said, "All right, if Robbie's going, I'll go to instructionally." And that's how it started. Right. And I never stopped. And your first year was my first full year too. And we had some characters in that coaching room.
No, unbelievable. Anyway, you go on the next year, you're pitching coach for 18 years. And one of the things that I looked up just to see, out of the 18 years, 12 of those years, your staff were in the top 10 in ERA. And 7 of those years, they were the top 4. I mean, there's some horses back then. I mean, you guys did a great job with World Series 4 times, 3 world champions. I mean, some of the guys, what was not really what's the secret, but what did you do? What got, there's some pretty good players that come through, and a lot of them were homegrown, which is very, very special.
Yeah, it was great to all of us. For you, I'm sure Burt Bradley, who was our minor league coordinator, yourself, Mike Caldwell, Trevor Wilson, a lot of left-handers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Sabian believed in left-handers back then. Even Pat Rice joined us later. He was a left. But, Dick Tidrow was behind all of that, as we know. Honestly, it was the way everybody came through the system, and they got to me, and I just was the extension of the system. Of course, I had a little different personality, but basically I tried to, just keep it rolling what these guys were learning on the way through. And I don't know, Ross, my personality, the day-to-day personality, being able to talk to different guys and being in all these different roles and all the stuff I went through with the Yankees, from the front office stuff to the bullpen and back. And, I guess it all helped out, but I just picked up from everybody. I watched and listened. As you know, I didn't run around and try to overcoach, but I didn't undercoach either too, because the first thing they'll do is hammer you for that. But I definitely had Mark Gardner on my side too for a bunch of years. We were pretty good. We had a pretty good idea what we were doing. Billy Hayes was down in the pen, our minor league manager for years, and a catcher. And I think all those elements and being able to get in that tiny room that the coaches are always in and get along with each other.
Really? Oh, no.
And then Dave, walk out that door and be able to coach those guys.
Hey, Dave, I think you're being a little humble. I did some homework. Russell Ortiz, 63-40 with Dave Righetti. Jason Schmidt, over a 5-year period, 78-37. Matt Cain had 6 consecutive 200 innings pitch seasons. You, of course, were the pitching coach for the Freak, Tim Lynchcomb. You had quite an effect on a number of players. There's no question about it. They just didn't do what they did under you.
Well, you know what? I grew up in the era of consistency and being there for the team, and that was my number one thing. I never overprotected the guys. I let them take their lumps, but I never let them get beat up. And I made sure they kept their mind right. And if I couldn't do it, I get some help and maybe get somebody else to help them too. But you know what? And they wanted to be a part of it. They knew kind of what a part that we did, myself and Gardner, who had a nice career. And the guys they had coached, Mike Caldwell, Grimm's 20-game winners, they wanted to be a part of that. That was in their brain, right? And they knew the way we won with the Giants was pitching and defense. I think they just walked around like this, and they knew it. They expected it. They were actually your third, fourth, and fifth hitters, right, in the lineup, those kind of guys. And you're right. They made the post. I didn't overwork them. I understood an arm and how much pain they were in the next day, even if they didn't admit.
Yeah.
What is the difference between those guys that had that 4 or 5 year period of almost greatness versus Jim Palmer, 19 years, Jack Morris, 19 years? You know, what's the difference in today's pitchers versus the generation where you don't see that longevity as much today?
It's a mindset, and it starts the day you sign a rookie ball or A ball. You're expected to go pitch 7 innings. My case, they told me, we're going to take care of you. You got to go 6. And I didn't. Number 6 seemed unlucky. So you get out of there in the 6th inning, you can take a loss too easy. So I think you have to start with that mindset. But now they might not even throw an inning in spring training because we got to make sure they're okay after they sign. And I threw 300 innings my first year and a half. You know, I got ready to pitch in the big league. So they're not getting ready to pitch for that. And they don't have to, because in the big leagues, you might not have to go 3 innings.
Yeah.
So it starts there, but it's been going on a few years now. It's not just right now. And they're obviously cutting salaries because they're not going to have to pay starters anymore. So
Right.
that'll be great. You know, pretty obvious there, but you don't have to pay as many relievers. You got good starters either. So, you know, it's hand in hand.
Dave,
But the difference, I'm sorry, I want to answer your question. I apologize. Right now, even if you played in our ballpark and been there a lot, Stan, it was really hard to win because you could not separate yourself in a game because we couldn't hit a home run there. So every game these guys had was a grinder or they got a no decision. They had a hard time getting wins. And even Jason Smith, you go back to Lincecum, who was unhittable the whole year. These guys didn't even come close to winning 20, and they should have done that easy.
Yeah.
And but you're right. They didn't pitch. They didn't start 40 games either, though. So the times have changed. That'll never happen again.
Right.
Hey, the fact that you were a starter and a reliever, did that help you overall as a pitching coach of an entire staff versus having only been a starting pitcher?
Yes. And it helped to get released. It helped to get traded. It helped to be the worst guy in the staff and the number 1 guy. I went through it all and pitch with a bad arm, keep it quiet, you know, or say you're hurt, which was another thing you used to not be able to do, and sit out a while the team is playing without you and be able to talk to that player. It was coming from somebody that had been through it and wasn't going to lie to him just for the so-called whatever the doctrine was with the ball club or what have you. So they were treated pretty fairly. Yes.
Ross, you got a couple more?
Yeah. Rex, talk a little bit about Bumgarner. I mean, having him in the minor leagues and seeing this was, and I asked a lot of people, Bumgarner, Posey, Kane. A lot of people, the Orioles, I asked them, do you have a guy in this organization now that is a guy, not a can't miss guy, but a guy that's a difference maker.
Mhm.
Those three guys were difference makers, and you knew it. Let's come to the same thing. You knew it when you first saw them at the minor league level. My question was I said, do you have any of those guys in this organization? And the Orioles really no. Mountcastle's the only guy, and he's a one.
Yeah.
He's not a defensive guy, but talk a little bit about Bumgarner. I mean, and Posey, those guys are so special.
You're right. Different. It's funny. I just start, you think of his nicknames and stuff. I won't embarrass him, but you had him when he, he'd do some funny things with managers and coaches a little bit, but because he had his way and he could do it. He understood. He a tough kid, as we know, but he would see how far he could push too a little bit. But the best part about Bum, he wasn't afraid to change, and he wasn't afraid. He tinkered a little bit. Jason Smith was the worst, but Bum would tinker to get better, not necessarily tinker because he had this weird, quirky demeanor. His was, I want to be better than Kershaw, who he thought was the best lefty. And he goes, whoever the righty is, I'm going to beat his ass too. And I'm going to hit him.
Yeah.
But it all started when he first came up. He had that little tight delivery and that small, quick turn. And he can make a lot of pitches, but as you know, he had a lot of trouble fading the ball away from righties. He had a lot of trouble staying on the end of the bat on righties, and he could get the ball in fine. And his curveball was kind of tight and had nowhere to go because it'd start in the middle of the plate and finish down at their feet, but he can never backdoor it. So when he changed his delivery the next year, because he came to me and said, what can I do to get better? And I said, you're left-handed, the ballpark, it's 430 feet out to center field. I said, we need the ball going that way. Not over that left field fence, because he got hit pretty hard at the beginning. You know what? That son of a gun. It didn't take him 2 days to start working on it. And then, is that good? Is that the way you like it? And I said, yeah, because the other stuff was really good. And he already had the demeanor to get better and pitch. I love the way he carried himself on the mound. And then he, as you know, he gradually got bigger and stronger. And he was beautiful, He was the best touch for a big, strong guy I've ever seen in my life. 250 pounds, and he had delicate touch. And that's why he's a winner. And he's still going to win. I don't care what he throws speed-wise. He's going to still win. A neat, quick story, and you'll get a kick out of this. You might have been there. Did you go to Texas for the World Series or just at home?
Just at home.
So
Ross doesn't have that kind of money anymore.
The Giants used to send a few folks back then. But we're playing in Game 5, and Bum's going to start, and Posey's catching, of course. 2 of the youngest guys ever to pitch and catch in a World Series game. And they got the American flag across Texas in the outfield. It's the biggest flag I've ever seen. And in the right field corner, in the left field corner, out comes, the door opens, and Posey's down there, and he's catching Bum. They're playing long toss. And the presidents, the Bushes, come out, senior and junior. And they stop and get out and watch these guys play catch. Now, this is 2 kids on the Giants. These guys are going to go through the first pitch out for the Texas Rangers and fire up the crowd. And they get out. They stopped to shake hands with Posey and watch Bum and him warm up. And I said, wow, well, these are baseball guys, right? Both of them love the game. Well, that was pretty cool. So that was kind of the start. We won. But watching Buster go through the worst injury you can imagine getting at home plate, snapping his leg in half, knee, ankles, foot, as you know, and to come back and win the MVP in 2012, we got lucky. I practically, Ross, I only had to talk to him a little bit before the game, and I didn't have to talk to hardly the pitchers anymore about the game plan. And Posey would handle, because I knew what he was going to do and he knew what I wanted. And so we didn't have to go through all that. And I think it took a lot of pressure off the guys that didn't need all that information. And the guys that did, there was a couple, Cito and a couple other guys, but Lincecum's eating a sub, and Kane just needed a little. Bum, same thing, and coach them during the game. Don't be afraid to coach them. These guys were very coachable during the game.
Right.
But they were franchise guys, but it didn't have to work out. We got fortunate they stayed healthy and they were able to see their brilliance.
Dave Righetti, we've talked about a number of the starting pitchers that you handled. One of the most interesting guys, and I never got a chance to talk to him, but from a distance, was relief pitcher Brian Wilson with the gigantic beard. But that gigantic beard saved 163 games over 4 seasons, from 08 to 11. What kind of guy was he? And was he a special performer when the money counted?
Yes, sir. Ross is laughing.
I
He's
know.
special.
I had him an A-ball.
Did you have an
we
A-ball?
went through Oh yeah. He's a treat. He was his own guy. I mean, he was a different guy. But
You know
he
what?
reminded me, he was kind of like Bill Lee in a way.
Yeah. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
To me, and they were both from Mass, right? Or from the area. And you know what? You asked me something earlier, and this is the only thing I could put my finger on, because we all played ball and great coaches everywhere. I think I like these kind of guys because they weren't boring. The day-to-day game, the guy walks up to you every day. Yeah, I feel good. So Romo, you get Romo, you get Wilson, you get Lincecum.
Yeah.
I mean, it was never dull. And you know what was great about Willie? He could paint, and he could throw the ball where you wanted him to. And he wasn't afraid, as we know. And as his personality definitely evolved. But the beginning, I mean, when we both had him in the beginning, the first time I met him, he got hurt from hanging upside down, trying to do sit-ups on a bar with weights on his hands. And he tore his insides came out from underneath his ribs. And he hurt his intestines. I said, what? I said, when'd you get hit in a car accident? I was hanging upside down. I said, you stupid.
Really?
So we had a long talk. I said, Willie, there's no more coaches, because he had a little fun with everybody on the way out. Managers, coaches. I said, that's it. This is the last league. It's the only one that makes money. I said, you got to start taking this serious. This is I don't need you hurt every 5 minutes doing something stupid. This team's going to need you. If you want to be the closer, you're going to have to earn it. And it didn't take long. It didn't take long. And he did a hell of a job till he blew out.
I've got 2 more. Do you have 1 or 2 more, Ross? And then I'll
we can always come up with something. I hadn't talked to him in years.
Yeah. Hey, Stan, he's one half of the Captain Morgan twins.
I'll bet he is. I'll bet he is. So I'll tell you what, let me ask my 2, and then Ross will get the last 2. Forget whether or not you think he, or any of us think he did steroids or not. You coached and got to watch Barry Bonds play every day, who I think, and believe me, I'm old enough, and I went to Ted Williams baseball camp. I always thought Ted Williams was the greatest hitter I ever saw. But Barry Bonds is right there before he did anything, if he did anything. Your thoughts on what you witnessed? I mean, never saw a guy get 170, 180 walks and still putting up gigantic numbers.
Yeah, it like a lot of those guys that got to be those great home run hitters, McGuire too, and Sosa, you almost couldn't pitch them. And they all had great eyes. They never moved at the plate. Barry was unflappable. Plus he had a castle on his arm that he used to go home plate with. So, and as Ross knows, it doesn't take much to get a guy's attention. If you can move him and chip a bone once in a while, you stand up there different. But these guys were in that era where they could do whatever they wanted. And he definitely got bigger and stronger, but he was like a great fighter. Like Ali, later on in his career, he couldn't move, so he stood still and he took punishment, but he gave out punishment. Big men have, George Foreman knocking out people at 50. Barry kind of was that home run hitter at the end.
Yeah.
And, but at the beginning, I played with him too. And 93 was the best season I ever seen somebody. And I played with Ricky Winfield, Paul Molitor, all these, I mean, go on. And that was one of the greatest things I ever saw. And I got in trouble. I went to the Giants and I got back to New York and I was asked at Shea Stadium when we were playing the Mets. They asked me a question between Bonds and Mattingly. I said, whoa, leave me alone. I can answer about Will Clark and Mattingly. They asked me about Bonds. And I had never seen somebody run so easy, do everything so darn easy, and then tell you about it too. So, yeah. He was that kind of guy, but every player in the league felt the same way. And at that time, he still wasn't a bona fide 300 hitter every year, but you knew hands down who the best player on the field was. And go ahead.
Were you there the night Buck Showalter intentionally walked him? Were you coaching that night when Buck Showalter intentionally walked him with the bases loaded?
Yeah, that was the Diamondbacks. Yeah, he did it. And that got pretty ridiculous. But a few years later, he got walked 200 times. Yeah. And he did, to get one swing a night and get maybe two and hit home runs on these kind of things and do what he did against great hitters, pitchers, guys. I saw him take Rob Dibble out of that Riverfront Stadium when Dibble was in his heyday, right over his head in 1993. And that ball hit that back over that wall and on a line drive, because he was a line drive hitter then. Yeah. I was amazed, Stan. Him and Ricky Henderson, the two most talented guys I've ever seen. I didn't play with Willie Mays. Yeah. And I'm sure Clemente had some, talent wise. Yeah. On a given night that a fan would stand up kind of guy. Those are real superstars. They call guys now superstars for having a half a year,
Last question I have for you. You worked under Bruce Bochy for a long time. He's going to be a Hall of Fame manager. Do you think he will manage again? Do you think it burns inside him to get one more shot at this thing, but not go through the rebuilding thing, like take over a Yankees or a Boston when they're good, That's
interesting. I haven't talked to him in a while. I know he had the France team. He was going to go to the World Baseball. So he didn't take that much time off. Yeah. So he's in it, and San Diego was kind of ripe for the pickings there after they moved their manager. And I said, if it wasn't for COVID and everything. Yeah. Because he still lives down there in the area, but he loves to hunt. He loves people. He loves to travel. But you know what? He's built for it. I could see it, seeing Tony go back and doing it. I could see him doing it. It's definitely not an no way kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely. I could see him do it.
Ross, finish up. You got one or two more for Dave?
Just one real quick one. And seeing how things are now, Rags, how the game has, game's kind of the same. The people are different, but you got the basic agreement coming up in the next. Where do you see this baseball going from here? I mean, there's a lot of changes. They're putting new rules in. What do you see happening?
Well, we went through how many years? 50 years before they made just a little change, the DH, and changed a couple teams. So they had to add a wild card, and because of us, we won 103 games in 93 and didn't get in. So the next year they made a wild card. There's been more changes in a short time than we've had in our whole existence of baseball. And they're not done. And if it's up to them, they change everything. Almost every team has been gutted of anybody in a uniform that's played the game, because they want the game. They want to be able to, and this is not, I'm not bitter about it at all. I knew it was happening. I see it coming.
Right.
It's their toy, and this is what they want to do with it. What I'm worried about, Ross, is the only thing is the players don't realize they're not going to get coached by good people. Right. And they're not going to be taught. It's like going to high school and getting an elementary school teacher, be going to college and getting they're missing out, and it's not going to be the same, but they won't know it, because that's all. Right. The only thing they'll know is what they know. So this is the way it's going to be. And that's fine. Again, it's their toy, but there's a big disconnect between baseball now and all the players that I've coached, and a lot of them we talked about, don't even want to be a part of the game. That's
Right.
unheard of.
Sad. Very sad.
Almost every guy does want to go back because I don't want to go through the grind. No, it's not that. I don't want to see the game and to play the way it is. They don't even want to be around it. And I'm
Right.
talking about guys, you know, that we all know, and
Yeah.
gotten a ton of calls, and we're all disappointed in where the game is headed because imagine being a second baseman growing up. I can't go to the big leagues, you know, if I can hit and run, hit the ball the other way. So we can stay here all night, but I think it'll gradually come back. The Epstein thing was
Yeah.
a major.
Right.
I wish he'd have stayed there and made some changes, then quit.
Yeah.
But he may be in the commissioner's office and help us out a little bit and get it a little bit balanced. It's overbalanced, and there is no balance. Shouldn't even use the word balance.
Yeah.
But
Really.
I may stay a part of it. I was asked, Kyle Haynes asked me back to please come to spring training. I said, well, you got to pay me.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm not going to do it for Captain Morgan.
Yeah, you're not allowed to drink there too. So
Hey,
no, but
one last thing. One
Yes.
last thing is you got to give us a little bit of Frank Sinatra.
no.
Stan, he's a very good singer. I just want you to know that.
Really?
And he's
Well, he's
Frank
Italian.
Sinatra.
He's
You
Italian.
look away from it and listen to him croon a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
I remember.
that was my first and last foray into Captain Morgan and those big. I didn't have to drive, and
No.
I did. I sang a little "Summer Wind" for Shane Turner's kids or something. I don't. It was.
Yeah.
You know
Right.
what?
Great song, The Summer Wind.
You know something real
Oh.
quick, Stan. Oriole fans will love this. Rick Dempsey was
He
all
can
over
sing.
me to go to. He wanted me to go to this club that had a band and a stage. Back then, there was no clubs, right? Either had a jazz club. There was discos or something. But anyway, Dempsey wanted me to go, and Rich Bordy,
Uh-huh.
Ricky Henderson, all guys, and go. And he wanted me to sing, and these guys to play whatever the hell they could play. And Dempsey really wanted me to do it. And this again, a down year for the Oriole Ball Club. And I saved both ends of a doubleheader on my way to breaking the record that year, 46 saves. And I was battling Don Ossie, was having a great year too. This is 1986, true story.
Yeah.
So I sang that night, and whoever was in the front office who controlled I can't remember all the songs, and back then it was songs and ads, right? Now everybody's got to walk up.
Charles Steinberg? Was it Charles Steinberg?
Yeah. Some kind of paint and call signs for WW, whatever. And you know, the big fella up there with the Baltimore up there. But
Wild Bill Hayden.
anyway, they played me a walk up. They played Summer Wind as I was walking in or running in. I'm listening up there. I said, I think they're playing Frank Sinatra. And Dempsey did that. Dempsey might have forgot, but they had something to do with doing that. So I might have had the first walk-up music. I don't know.
Oh, perfect.
Dave
But I can't
Righetti,
sing.
I've long admired you both as a player, and I watched those late night games and always thought you were doing a great job with the Giants as
Thank
a
you.
pitching coach. Real honor to get a chance to talk to you tonight.
I appreciate you having me, Stan. All the great years you've done there. And
So,
It's
so I
fun.
gotta ask you, how did you two become such good buddies?
well, being left-handed, I think, started it. But you know what? We both started with the team together, and he
Yeah,
was
99.
older than me, of course. And I don't know. I think, well,
Well, we
Ross
spent a lot
gonna
of
get
time in
embarrassed, but
spring
too late.
training.
yeah, I think it was Ross's rash. He needed me to put some
Yeah,
ointment
right.
on a
Yeah, oh, yeah, really. Oh, I forgot about that.
That's an inside
Well,
joke.
Oh, Rags, thanks a lot, buddy. I
Hey,
really
Rags.
appreciate this.
Thank you.
Love
Well,
you, Greg.
maybe we can do it
Stan,
again sometime. Thank you very much. For Dave
Anytime.
Righetti, Ross Grimsley, I'm Stan the Fan, and we'll see you this coming Wednesday evening with Jake Joyce of the Live Casino Hotel to talk about the legalization of sports betting in the state of Maryland. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.